Hey Josh, what are you up to today?
Just watching the game. The new Khorne team just entered the pitch.
Stop Randall's who hates going outside!
I think this match might be one for the ages.
They do know the refs will send them off if they have chainsaws, right?
I reckon they would if they knew what a ref was. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of BBSPN, a Blood Bowl podcast. Khorne just entered the pitch. There's blood everywhere, and we have much to talk about. Not only do we have the Khorne teams, we also have a new issue of Spike, which is essentially just our first bit, but in magazine form. Today, particularly, we are going to try out the Khorne team against their undivided cousins, the Chaos Chosen. So starting off, we chose a team not out of the box like we did last episode, but actually teams that we would bring to a competition. So for my Chaos Chosen team, I went pretty standard. I had 6 Beastman runners, 4 chosen blockers, but thanks to the new 2020 rules, I added ourselves a Chaos Troll. And for team management, I just went with Slaanesh because, we're talking about a game where the Chaos Gods are made up and the points don't matter. So I went with the favorite of Slaanesh and with 2 team rerolls. Ayli, what did you bring to the table with Khorne?
This roster looks really weird on paper, but I swear it was fine. So I brought 6 of the Marauder linemen. And then I really wanted the Bloodspawn, so I took the Bloodspawn, and then I went with 3 Bloodseekers, 1 Khorne Gore, and 2 team rerolls. So only 11 players. It came out to 980 TV, which meant I could have taken a second Khorne Gore if I had done my math. But
Now,
that was what I brought.
now, a lot of people see the big guy, even in Bashy teams, as the biggest liability. Why did you take the Bloodspawn for this occasion?
So the big one was that I kind of wanted to push the team a bit and see how similarly it could play to like Norse, because because Norse will kind of play really dicey too, and this is a team with a bunch of frenzy, so it's probably going to work the same way. So I ended up taking the Bloodspawn just to see is taking the big guy on this team worth it, and also because this is a team with a bunch of frenzy, this is the only source of Mighty Blow or Claw. In fact, it has both. That comes based on the team, which means it'll get removals, which means you'll have free players to set up 2-die frenzy blocks, which is really the big deal here. So getting removals means, hypothetically, means I have a pitch advantage, means I get better frenzy blocks. So
Yeah, these guys come with Claw Bomb out of the gate, standard, which is incredible.
Wait, they have Pile Driver too?
Do they have Pile Driver?
I don't think they do. No. There's no way. They wouldn't just do that.
Yeah.
If he did have Pile Driver, you would never use it anyway because he's 160 TV. I do not remember seeing that.
So I won't go too much into how our starting lineups went off of. We're both playing Bashy teams. We are really close up to the center to start off. Even the kickoff stats were pretty basic. The weather was nice. We had brilliant coaching, which I won, so I got an extra reroll. And the ball was kicked for a touchback because my Beastman decided to yeet it into the stratosphere. So what I will talk about is the latest edition that we have, which is Khorne. Now, some things that kind of caught my eye about Khorne, besides just their roster and all their frenzy, was that you could take an apothecary, which shows that either there is someone who enjoys either conserving blood until it gets spilled later. I'm not sure how apothecary for Khorne works thematic wise. You'd think that they want the blood outside the body at all costs, but I digress. Your rerolls at 60k, which means that they're less than the Chosen and they're less than The tier 1 teams, I think. So you have some wiggle room when it comes to investing in your roster. The only problem is that, and I don't know if I heard this somewhere or I just heard it somewhere and I wanted to believe it's true, but I could have swore that someplace GW said that they were going to stop the whole, if you want a good team, you have to delve into Forgeworld and start throwing your money at them. But it looks like you will need to invest in some Forgeworld items to get the entire roster. For instance, you have the Team Booster and the Bloodspawn and Cilia, one of the star players. They're all on Forgeworld, so they are at a premium.
Yeah, so I don't think this was ever like stated by GW. It was definitely a thing that was talked about, that had been talked about for a while, because most of the recent team releases were things that were available in all plastic for the most part. I mean, like they were definitely moving away from the team boosters for a while. That being said, like, star players have always been a thing on Forgeworld, right? Like, that's just kind of Forgeworld's domain, so that's kind of whatever to me. I'm not big on the Bloodspawn being Forgeworld. I get it. It's a niche big guy. Usually, if it's a big guy that's only on one team, it ends up on Forgeworld. But with the exception of, like, the Rat Ogre, I think. But still, I think it's time to just push Blood Bowl into plastic. Come on.
Not even just push it into plastic, but, like, push it. I kind of hope that Games Workshop, for their box games, even if their items are on Forgeworld, they still show them on their main site. Just so that players know that, you know, when they get their Khorne box and they open it up and they see that there's a Bloodspawn on their list and they look at their sprues and like, well, what the fuck? That they know, like, where to get it and that it's available. Because I'm not sure, like when I started talking to people about box games in Games Workshop, or like even the last two people I played Blood Bowl with, they didn't know much about Forgeworld. They didn't even know that Forgeworld was a part of Games Workshop or affiliated with.
Really?
Yeah, it's also an issue with, like, I don't think it's an issue with other box games. It's just like with Blood Bowl specifically, like, they just don't know that some of these things are available. Like, they don't see it on the website and they assume it's sold out because, you know, everyone knows Games Workshop being sold out of something is a huge meme, especially if you played Age of Sigmar. But
Start of the pandemic, being a Skaven player sucked. Well, 3/4 of my army is out of stock, and what isn't is all metal and Vinecast. That's
exactly.
Nice.
But going on star players again, the ones that Khorne get now, they get Acorn, of course. You have to have Acorn. I almost feel like that the Khorne team should have a little sprue that it has in the corner. It's small squirrel, so you can add Acorn to your roster just from the get-go.
Acorn now also in the Khorne team kit.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be great? Like,
that would have been amazing.
Oh
my favorite part right now, because he's in the Tree Man kit right now, except it's advertised as Acorn. Also, there's a Tree Man.
Yeah.
That's how it's advertised right now.
Exactly. And then you have Glart Smash Rip, the Fat Skaven, Grack and Crumbleberry, which I think can you just get Grack and Crumbleberry with everybody? I see him all the time.
Let me check his special rules real quick, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple that were like that historically and no longer are.
Yeah. All right, but then you have Grashnak Blackhoof, the chonky Minotaur. Then you have Hacklem Scuttlespike, the bane of all tournaments this world over. Helmet Wolf, the Chainsaw Boy, Lord Borak himself. I hope to one day see him, only because I really like his scheme. It's very old school Warhammer Fantasy. Morgan Torek, and then Cilia.
Yes, he can play for any team. Helmet and Grack. I think Grack and Crumbleberry are the only two right now that are any team.
Yeah. So that's what they have. Yep. Going back into the issue of Spike 13 as we start getting murdered, just to give some reference, Ayli really popped off with her lineman removal. I had some KOs pretty darn early in the match and some pretty high armor rolls from her side. So it got a little hectic. But from Spike 13, of course, there's a lot of lore bits and all that other good stuff. But something that really struck to me, besides Khorne-specific pitches and all that other good things, is the Cursed Skull Goblet, which I initially assumed that it was actually new rules for all your Chaos factions, so you could choose which Chaos God you want and play for them as part of an official league thing, but that isn't. And that's fine. But for the Cursed Skull Goblet, you can use any team that you have available, and you can devote them to a god, and then you can have them play for that god. And the interesting thing about these is that you don't just get, it's not just a regular league where you just get bonuses for worshiping a god, and then you get a couple of new pitch or kickoff events, and that's it. You actually have to appease your god by doing a certain actions like injuries, fouls, rushing, passing, all those kinds of things. So, like, it's going down from the roster. Like, if you play for Khorne, if you devote your team to Khorne, you actually get more SPP for injuries and deaths. That sounds broken as hell, but it's really cool. Nurgle, you get like a poor man's regeneration on a 6-up for any KO injury or death. They get put in the reserves box. Tzeentch can decide the outcome of any roll, and that's any roll, yours or your opponent's, once per game.
What? That's nuts!
And everyone from Slaanesh gets sprint. So you can rush an extra... Well, actually, that's not entirely true. Slaanesh players get to rush one more time per turn than normal. So that, I think, means that if you have a player that has sprint, they can rush 4 times. Again, like, blood-fueled insanity as Chaos is, I still kind of wish that this was kind of something we could do for a regular league. But, I mean, if you're playing Blood Bowl, this is definitely a Chaos or a league I would want to try. Because holy crap, this is amazing.
This sound like I can see, like, oh god, can you imagine Tzeentch with a marker type player?
Exactly.
You're just like, no, you don't get to dodge. The ball's loose. Go, gutter runner!
Or imagine, like, say someone's in the end zone and the only option you have is a really bad pass to, like, a player with, like, an AG 3 or 2 up. You can just decide that, yes, this pass makes it. This ludicrous pass that's, like, 10 squares away is possible because Tzeentch said so. And,
or you auto-pass your intercept.
Yeah. Or, yeah.
So you just intercept the ball just immediately.
Again, absolute insanity.
And then you have to play a normal game of Blood Bowl while everybody else gets to rush 3 squares.
Exactly. Now, of course, the caveat to fulfilling your gods is that if you don't fulfill whatever you have to do, you actually get punished. Now, I'm not going to go into the punishments because they're like a mile long, but you do get punished if you don't follow your god's requirements. But if you do succeed, you get boons. That's a whole other story. But it's a really good dynamic. It has downsides, upsides, and incentives to make you play this league. And I hope that we get to play something like this soon, because it is very attractive. Now, where are we at here? We're at like 17 minutes. 17 minutes is still early in the game. But when we started playing, Ayli won the toss, so she got the hit first. And of course, when it's Bash Team versus Bash Team, being able to punch first is just better.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So, you saw my defensive lineup as normal. I put 3 people on the line as sacrifices and then put everyone in the back. I still think that what I did would have probably been better if I actually put my Chaos blockers on the line of scrimmage, because even though I would have been risking them to claw and mighty blow, I don't think they would have gotten murdered as well as my beastmen did. That, and I feel like I needed speed more than I needed strength to keep up with your team. But what did you think about, like, the opening drive and the first couple of turns?
I think I made a bunch of really weird decisions that panned out. Because we literally got to, okay, cool, my turn, and I spent like 5 minutes in the tank, just like, oh god, this math. Oh no.
Yeah. There was a point where I thought that Ayli had disconnected, and I asked, like, okay, it's your turn. She's like, yeah, no, I'm doing some calculations of, like, I am stuck with the most complacent Khorne player in the entire galaxy if Ayli decides to play Khorne more often. It's just going to be nothing but waiting for her to decide which characters were statistically better to frenzy. And while that's, like, your typical, like, tournament play Blood Bowl, it's Khorne, goddammit. It's freaking Khorne.
Just throw the block.
And I had to sit there with the controlling Khorne player as she decides to beat my ass with her skills. But
There's something really screwed up about the Khorne team, which has lore accurate skills and everything. But they picked the one that makes you have to do the most thinking.
exactly, like
you gave them all frenzy. Why? That's the one that makes everybody have to think.
yeah, it's like when you have like Brawler for Black Orcs, it makes sense because like, oh, if there's a both down, I'm gonna re-roll it again. That's just something that happens. That's just gonna happen.
Bigger and better.
Yeah, I'm just bigger and better. But like Frenzy's like, well, if I push him into there, I'll have to do another 2-block die, and that's like a percentage of yada da. It's
Big
like,
thinking Khorne.
I know that Ayli has to think, but god damn it, this is not what I expected of the core team. I expected just like a steamroll, but what I got was like was 2 hours of very intense, grindy gameplay, which is really odd to say.
I felt bad about that too, because I was like, oh my god, I am like slow rolling my frenzy here because I just don't know what to do.
Yeah. And it made sense because like the way I set my lineup, I had a line of Chaos chosen in the back because I knew that whoever was going to be making the hits was going to have to move a maximum of 2 spaces, and they had to move. So that's why, like, especially with our first drive, you'll see Ayli like thinking around because if she's going to push someone, it's going to be a 2 red die block if they fail and have to push. So that is a lot of thinking you have to do, and that's something that's going to be a huge wake-up call for new players who just want to play Khorne, because Frenzy is such a trap. It is such a void or such a skill gap that you don't know until you start playing.
Yeah,
but
it was really like you set up your defense correctly, right? Like that was absolutely the right play. It's just one of those things of like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the first turn for Khorne every single game, barring you're playing against like Skaven or Pro Elves. Or, you know, something that is like both AV7 and not very good at fighting. Oh god, can you imagine playing Khorne into Amazons and you just do nothing but get pushes for the entire game?
Well, just imagine like even the downside of you don't have any block. Imagine facing a team that has block. That's even more thinking you have to do. And God forbid you play against humans or orcs that have 4 blockers off the back, or 4 units with block off the back. It's going to be a nightmare of thinking about all those things at once.
Heaven forbid that, you know, you play like the majority of teams in this game that start with block.
Yeah.
You picked the one team that didn't.
And this is kind of like going into why your Khorne dogs are so important, or your Khorne gores, is that you need to use them for your blitzes because they don't have frenzy. So you can actually save yourself the trouble of having to think too much about your blocks as you're playing Khorne. As Ayli progressed, this kind of became more apparent because every time she made a block and didn't knock someone down, another downside was that she made herself out of position. And just from her using Frenzy and not positioning correctly, or just like not being able to position herself after her blocks, I was still able to get to the ball even though I was playing like 3 people down as Chaos. So I don't have the resources to get to the ball as easily as Elves would or Skaven would. I'm just there, and I was still able to get the ball out around, I think, turn 3 and turn 7.
Yeah, I just kind of sat there. I was like, oh, he can't reach me. No, he can, Ayli. Count the fucking squares.
It's just the way that goes. Like, there's a lot of thinking that has to be involved with Khorne. And I don't know if that's a great thing yet. Granted, this game came close, but the biggest stinger is that that poor GFI on turn 8 completely would have been a 2-0 game.
I literally said on turn 7, I'm having flashbacks to one of the first games of Blood Bowl Josh and I played. I don't know if Josh was in that game. He was in that league. It was like the first league Josh and I were both in together. I was playing Goblins in Blood Bowl 2, and I lost a game because I failed the turn 16 GFI and the Goblin tripped and died. I literally said, I'm having flashbacks to that right now. And lo and behold, he didn't die, unfortunately. But
it was still hard to watch because
I was just like, no.
The good thing is that since Ayli's been around the block or two, she was able to save the majority of her rerolls for until the last couple of turns in that drive. That's my other thing about Khorne. Like, I really see that this is the team that you're going to just be throwing rerolls into the trash can because of one bad block or several bad blocks or just the combination of the two. But you're able to conserve it quite well. I will say that. I will also say, though, that some of your armor rolls were really good. Especially since you were able to knock out... Wait, you didn't just knock out. You actually knocked out and injured one of my Chaos blockers. So I was already going to be in for a really rough time, whoever I face next. Because I was getting removed from the board. Which is never a fun time as Chaos Chosen. That harkens me back to when I was able to beat a Chaos Chosen team as Elven Union by beating them to death. And I will never forget that game. Because that was ridiculous, and the guy who played Chaos Chosen never came to our league again. So
beat the shit out of it with Elven Union.
Yeah. So by like the end of our first drive, the Bloodspawn got some SPP for an injury, and I don't think anyone else did. I feel like we only had KOs until the second half, save for the Bloodspawn who caused an injury. So we're only looking at 2 SPP in a heavily bashy game, which I still think is outside of the usual
2 SPP for
parameters.
For you?
No, it was 2 SPP for you because your Bloodspawn took out a Chaos blocker. Or a Chosen blocker.
Yeah, he injured somebody. There was another injury though, because there was an MNG and then there was like something else. Yeah. It was like a chronic or an MNG. So it was like a 4 SPP game off of injuries, which that's your game 1. That's really good. That's pretty like you take those.
And now drive 2 comes along, and now it's my turn. The sucky part is I was only able to remove one of Ayli's units. They got knocked out. They stayed out, thankfully. And unfortunately, I had 4 people knocked out, and only one of them got up. So I'm already playing.
One of them got up.
Yeah. So I had to play with 2 men down, which was a pain in the ass. Looking back, maybe I should have went for the 12th man, but I really wanted the troll. I thought the troll was going to pull it out for me, especially for this match, since Ayli's linemen have very low armor, so it wouldn't be too hard to get to them. But anyway, I started on the line, and instead of trying to do what I normally do in these situations, just kind of like lame the ball into my back line, try to find an opening and go for it, because I sincerely believe that once you play down as early Chaos Chosen, you're always playing down, and you kind of have to start making risks as soon as possible. And I needed to, if I scored, I would have another chance of getting my KOs back up. So the first thing I did was try to submarine the ball or give the ball to a beastman runner that I had on the line.
Oh no, worth noting, the ball landed on the LOS. So if he doesn't do anything, I've got the ball.
Exactly.
'Cause that
Unfortunately,
kid was
instead
dumb.
of any single kick that would have been like, I had a beastman everywhere. I knew it was going to be a bad play. It's not like elves where I can just pass and give the ball and it'll be fine. No. I was like, okay, all he has to do is kick it in someplace. I'll just make a play. Even if it's in the back line, it's fine to have time. That ball lands like that, like a freaking artillery shell that's a dud. Right on the freaking LOS. Like no one's business. And thuds
Bloodspawn
there.
says hi.
And I have to accept the fact that the only way I'm getting this ball is I have to get the Bloodspawn away and get one of Ayli's Bloodseekers away. So I'm already making two very risky blocks. Luckily, after burning both my rerolls on my first turn of that drive, I was able to get the ball and make some room. And man, the rest is kind of history, but it was also a train wreck. So I was able to get an injury off of one of the trolls' blocks early on. So I was able to make a funnel, like one of those nice Blood Bowl funnels. Ayli's units are on the outside, I'm on the inside. Fine. Then that's where the risk comes in because I want to score fast, so I have to potato the ball. So go through what you're thinking as I'm trying to make this 6-man funnel.
I'm thinking that I screwed up by moving a lineman behind to harass your ball carrier when he should have just been in the back. I was like, this is probably going to be the wrong move. But let's try it. And it, once again, bit me in the rear end, as it usually does. Because, of course, it always does.
Yeah, so we get to the end of the match. It's a complete slaughter fest. I mean, people are dropping left and right. Ayli finally gets a breakaway. She knocks over my ball carrier with plenty of time to spare on her side of the pitch and slowly moves up. I can't make a dodge to save my freaking life because this is chaos and they don't do dodges, but I tried because if you have one dude with horns, you have someone that can get to the ball, and at that point, it was not really a game of can I win this? It was more of can I tie this? So we get to the end of the ball, and Ayli scores on turn 16, and she gets it. It was. I will say that it was probably one of the most tense games of Blood Bowl that I've played in quite some time. The question is, Ayli, how do you feel about this team?
I love them. This team is really fun. It doesn't really matter like how you build them necessarily. It's always gonna be a train wreck and a half because, of course, it is. Because it's Khorne and you have Frenzy. In terms of like, well, no. They reminded me a lot of Norse in that Norse is also a team where you just kind of, there's no other way to describe it other than sometimes you just Norse your opponent. And this is kind of the same thing here where sometimes you're just going to get corned and that's just it. There's nothing you can do about it. You're just going to corn your opponent and they're dead. They can't do anything. It's very much a go big or go home team, which is what I thought they were going to be, and I love them for that. Honestly, I think this is like a really good addition to Blood Bowl right now. I think that we needed another team that Norse not being in the rulebook was kind of weird because it didn't give players a kind of like dicey team that's very much like live by the sword, die by the sword. So I'm really glad that we have Khorne, and now we have something that's not Teams of Legend that is like that. Even though I'm pretty sure most Blood Bowl players are aware of the Teams of Legend because they're definitely much more present in Blood Bowl than like Legends models are in 40k or Age of Sigmar. So still, it's good to see. The team is really fun. That Bloodspawn, man, sometimes that thing's just a house.
That is pretty terrifying. Now, granted, it only has 9-up armor. So, again, it's like, as you said, go big or go home. You have to use it, because if you get bullied as Khorne, or you start taking losses as Khorne, I don't see how you really get back.
If they beat the crap out of your linemen, like you still get to play the game because you have Bloodseekers, right? And like you have Khorngor, so you can get like 2-die blitzes unassisted. But it's like really the Bloodseekers being strength 4 is a big deal on this team, because it means that if your linemen are getting pummeled, you still get to do stuff.
Yeah, and another big thing is that since I feel like having Unchanneled Fury instead of really stupid works for Khorne, because now you have an incentive, 1, to actually hit people, and 2, you don't have to worry about losing your tackle zones with Unchanneled Fury. It's still not the best. It's still a downside, but I feel like in terms of Khorne, Unchanneled Fury works just fine, because now you can make a plan around your Bloodspawn. And the Bloodspawn actually has the skill set, besides just having Mighty Blow, to remove things off the field. Which is why I agree with you that the Bloodspawn is a must-take for Khorne.
Yeah, I could not imagine trying to play Khorne without this, if I'm being honest. Like, if I'm playing this in a league, I'm always going to take that Bloodspawn first. I could see trying to do it out of the box, and I think maybe you have a team there. I mean, like you by all definitions, you do have a team, but and I think that you might that you could play the game, fairly well. And if you're a good player, you probably can do really well with them. But it's like, man, that Bloodspawn just opens the door to so much stuff. You need a pitch advantage. You have Frenzy and Strength 3. You need a pitch advantage for your blocks to be profitable.
And 8 armor. It's very easy for you to just receive what you tried to replicate.
Yeah. you 1 in 9 a couple times, that's it. You're done. But hey, never tell me the odds.
Yeah.
Because I spend 5 minutes trying to figure them out on my own.
But what are your thoughts on team development for Khorne? What are you taking?
Oh man, that's a block first, right? Like
oh yeah,
on almost everything, block first. Seriously, because I think what is it? The Bloodseekers and the line. There's a Bloodseeker. Like everything has general mutate, has like primary mutation access, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? It's everything? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, those Khorngors are a little bit different, though. Like, what's funny is that I could see somebody taking Frenzy first on a Khorngor. Because with Jugs... With Jugs, Frenzy, and Horns, because they come with Juggernaut, you've got a decent amount of pitch control. Granted, you're only movement 6 on that player, but like you get 4 of them, and while you definitely don't start with very many, this isn't a like a Nurgle sort of situation where you're like dumping all of your SPP into your Pestigors. I don't think you're doing that with Khorne. I mean, I think it's a good thing to have, and I think that if you can level your Khorngor early, it's going to be useful. But I mean, you could also just go block first on a few of them. I mean, like, having one guy... having a couple, like, Frenzy Jugs would be really useful. God, what the hell are the Bloodseekers getting, man? Like, Guard. Like, Guard is really good. Stand Firm could be useful. I mean, like, just going Guard Mighty Blow gives you some really good players, because it means that they're always helping your Frenzy blocks, which is going to be a really big deal. And it also means that, like, regardless of where they're positioned, if they're in base-to-base contact with people, you're going to get value out of them, which is a big deal when you have a bunch of frenzy, and sometimes you just don't get to decide where you're to go.
What are your thoughts on mutations then? Because I'm hearing a lot of general skills, but is there any mutations you think? Because that opens up a huge different avenue that other teams don't have. That's probably one of the biggest bonuses to playing Chaos is that you get the mutation tree, so you get kind of discount versions of a lot of things from different trees.
I think it might just be Claw, if I'm being honest. Tentacles is not what it used to be, so like Tentacles is not really that super useful.
What about a prehensile tail for Bloodspawn?
Maybe. I think that could be interesting, but like Bloodspawn, because like the Bloodspawn, he only gets strength and mutation, doesn't he? Or is he mutation on doubles? He might be mutation on doubles.
We'll
Or
have to double
on
check.
secondary. Yeah, double check for me real quick.
So,
What are his primary skills?
Just a sec. What do you think? Do you think that you should take this team for a short league or a long league? Like, how long do you think
Both.
Khorne will... Both?
Both. I say both, actually. Like, you can play them in either. It's definitely going to become more of a liability. Or not more of a liability, but the team is going to be way more polished later, of course. But I mean, like, your opponent sees that they're playing against Khorne, and they're like, what the hell do I do? Like, this guy's got frenzy on everything. It's like, it's going to be a fun team no matter where you take it. Right? So I would totally just, you know, if you think that, if you want to try the team, it doesn't matter what the environment is, just give them a try.
Yep. Primaries, mutation, and strength.
Mutation strength. Okay. I do not, like, you can save for block on this guy first skill. And I think that's fine. It's a lot of SPP though, right? Because that's a secondary for him. So it's 12 SPP. I mean, he can get SPP relatively quickly, but I can definitely see people saying, I'm just going to take the brawler and be done with it. But I mean, like, other mutations here, like, prehensile tail might be fine. Tentacles is okay. Or, like, tense isn't as useful anymore. Because he's strength 5, but you have to remember that he's also armor 9 up. So he has totally average armor.
Do you think you take a designated ball carrier, or do you think you just go with whomever has to go at the ball? There's something about me seeing a Khorne Gore with a huge hand as a mutation and just rocking with that.
Sure hands, big hand.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah, like, I can see taking sure hands early. I'm not sure. So the question there is, I don't know how you do it, because a lot of the rosters that I think are good out of the box or otherwise, you usually only have 1 or 2 Khorne Gores, right? So, like, if you have 2 Khorne Gores, getting sure hands on one of them, really good idea. Also, because he has horns, he can blitz his way out of something if he has to, and because he has jugs, if there is pressure that requires him to blitz, he can use a both down as a push, which is going to be super useful, because that means that you just basically have to dub Skull in order to keep that pressure on you. You have to dub Skull, which is a really big deal. So, like, yeah, if you start with 2 Khorne Gores, which is probably what I would recommend, because my roster had 20k left over, which meant that you could drop a lineman for a Khorne Gore, which I would definitely recommend, because it's one less AV 8-up player.
Exactly.
You can get sure hands on a Khorne Gore, and I think that's probably really useful. You'll probably end up skilling one of them up as like a ball carrier, you know, like sure hands, big hand. Maybe you save for an AG up, but honestly, I don't know how much I like that.
Yeah.
Mutation. I'm still stuck on this mutation question on this big guy. I don't know.
Well,
I think he can go in a lot of different directions.
Well, if you have anything, that's fine. But I do agree with you that you take this for any league, one, because it's an off-human variant team that doesn't have any stunties, has a big guy if you want it, and they come with skills preset. They come with actually a couple of skills that aren't all just extraordinarily bad skills starting off, which is great. And to be completely honest, like after that game of with Chaos Chosen, I'd be like, you know what? If I had a choice between Chaos Chosen and Khorne, I would go Khorne. I just feel like, even though Frenzy is still a trap in my opinion, still a trap, it's still better than just having nothing. And while I do enjoy like the new big guys the Chaos Chosen can grab from, the Bloodspawn just fits into the bash MO better than the other big guys I can think of right now. So I say, yeah, Khorne is looking good. Maybe not top tier, but it's a lot of fun to play, and it gives you a different style of play because you may come for the blood, but you're staying for the big thinking. Because holy crap,
The big thinking.
big thinking. All right. And with that, we will bid you all adieu. Thank you very much for listening to BBSPN, a Blood Bowl podcast.
You okay?
Sorry, I
You
choked
okay?
apparently I choked on a non-existent bone. We will see you all.
Popcorn.
Yeah, shut up. We will see you all next time. I think next we'll probably try another out of the box episode. We'll see what happens. We'll see how we feel with the holidays coming in very close around the corner. Hopefully that doesn't take this episode too bad. But
Yeah. Do we want to like maybe update people on like what we're like? Do we want to talk about the kind of like what our content schedule is looking like now?
well, our content schedule right now is going to be we of course we want to cover the new additions and the new items as soon as possible as they come out. We also want to keep trying like the what ifs of Blood Bowl. So when it comes to like the seasons, so like we're about to hit the holiday season for this year. It's not going to be easy for Ayli and I to get together and do these podcasts. So it is most likely that we won't be able to pick up on much of anything really, save for Dungeon Bowl, until the new year. Which I think is safe to say because right now, as of the making of this podcast, it's only about a month and a half worth of wait, which is fine. It's something that we can do.
Yeah. Totally.
But in terms of future content, we actually want to look to you guys, not just to help, but also to help explore the Blood Bowl fandom as much as we can. We want to talk to some of our people that we've, some of the people we communicate with who are in like the tournament Blood Bowl scene, not just on tabletop, but also in Blood Bowl 2 with like Windy City Warmongers. I want to talk to a man by the name, and I'm going to get this name right because he's been such a wonderful and nice person, Vergond. Vergond is the man who actually makes the tabletop bloods, one of the creators who helped make the Blood Bowl 2020 assets for Tabletop Sim, which we've been using.